Yes, I do.
Okay, great. Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is John Fraundorfer. I'm with the Denver Construction Careers Program, and I'm here with my colleague, Derek Watson. And today we are joined by Katrina Wirt. She's the Executive Director of Workforce Initiatives at the Community College of Denver, and she's the Executive Director of WORKNOW. And she's here to tell us about WORKNOW and how they support registered apprenticeship programs. So before we get into that, tell us a little bit about yourself, Katrina. First, welcome as well, and tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got involved with WORKNOW.
Thank you. Thank you. Good to be here. And I look forward to talking with all of you today about the benefits and value of registered apprenticeship in construction workforce. So as John said, I work at the Community College of Denver. And about 4.5 years ago, in light of multiple construction projects and building expansion activity and highway expansion activity that was happening across the metro area, a group of resource and construction training programs came together to talk about what does it look like to approach this issue of both expanding the construction workforce pipeline and helping community members connect in very real ways to high wage, high growth job opportunities in this industry, as well as business opportunities. What does it look like for us to come together and do that in a collaboration, as a coalition, working together to break down our silos and integrate our services more? And as we started working together, we decided to formally coalesce around this idea of creating career paths for all in this industry and really tackling some of the common obstacles. And that coalition became WORKNOW. And I've been pleased to be a part of that now for about 3 years of outcomes and continued growth and supporting community members and contractors in this industry.
Uh-oh. John, I think you're muted.
Yes, I am. Okay. Could you give us a little bit more information about WORKNOW?
Sure. So, as I said, this is a coalition of over 20 organizations, and we're working together to achieve 4 basic priorities. One is to find and prepare workers. And in that space, we're offering services around career exploration and training, whether it's basic skills or upgrades, any activity that will help someone be ready to compete successfully for a craft or professional service job in this industry. The second priority that we have together is really about how do we better integrate and scale supportive services that work? You know, what helps someone stabilize themselves and their family so that they can find a good job in this industry and then keep it. And that's where we offer many of the supportive services that you'll hear about later in our conversation. The third priority that we have together is around identifying and removing barriers to entry and success in this industry. And we look particularly in terms of barriers for women and people of color and how we as a group can remove those. And you'll see that in some of the innovation work that we do, some of the pilots that we do across partners, and again, some of those supportive services. Because many of these organizations have been around doing this kind of work in the metro area, we know what has been a stumbling block for people connecting to good jobs, and this is about action work. And that brings us to our fourth priority as a coalition, which is really about how do we improve our practice, how do we learn from national models and bring that success and those lessons learned to our community here in the metro area.
Okay, great. Well, thank you. Thank you for that background information. So today we'd like to talk specifically about registered apprenticeships and how WORKNOW supports both people that are in registered apprenticeships or looking to get into them, and also, you know, the companies that are looking at getting into registered apprenticeships. How does WORKNOW support those types of things?
Great. Well, I look forward to talking to you about that. We believe very strongly in registered apprenticeship as a pipeline to this industry, and we work with multiple union or joint programs, as well as non-union or open shop programs that are registered apprenticeships. And you know, we see it as a great way for employers to scale and grow their workforce in a way that aligns with national and standardized elements of curriculum, but also customized pieces that may be unique for their company or their market because of the on-the-job supervision that happens daily between a journey worker and an apprentice. And then from the employee side, we see tremendous value in learning a trade this way because you go and earn and learn an occupation path by working. So you're actually doing the work. Most registered apprentices are working full time. There's a set number of hours they need to be working each year to move up, a set number of related instruction hours they complete, which in some programs is one night a week after school. In some programs, it's a combination of online and classroom. And for some, it's one day a week you go to the classroom instead of your job site, but you're earning the whole time and you're finishing your apprenticeship period without debt and moving into incremental pay raises as you learn throughout your apprenticeship. So, for both employers and employees, we see big benefits to this as a workforce development strategy, particularly in construction.
Yeah. Great, thank you. That's very insightful. Let me ask you this, because let's just say I'm an employer. And I already have some apprentices and incumbent workers on my project. What resources and support can WORKNOW offer me if I'm already in this area? Because I know there's one thing to bring on a net new apprentice, but what about some of our incumbent workers and some of our apprentices that are a little more seasoned? What kind of support can they expect from WORKNOW?
Certainly. So for contractors that are already participating in registered apprenticeship and have employees on a job site who are apprentices, there's a couple of different supportive services that this coalition offers that might be helpful. First is actual immediate individual supports that an apprentice might need to help with their family stability, to keep them showing up every day on time and ready to go and ready to focus at the task at hand. And those include things like potentially warm weather gear, working during the winter, appropriate work jackets, insulated overalls, work boots, specific resources like referrals to food banks in some cases, or gas cards, support for tools. Many times as apprentices move up, they are expected to increase the size of their toolbox and what they have and what they can bring to work because they're able to perform new things. And for some individuals, that can be cost prohibitive, depending on their family situation. And so the resources of this coalition can help an employer give an apprentice who they perceive might be struggling, or the foreman sees that there may be some support needed. It gives that employer an easy and effective solution to help meet that need and to be able to retain that apprentice. We also have done support in other ways in terms of coaching or advanced upskilling. For some apprentices, they're able to get technical skills upgrades through their apprenticeship training program, but skills that are also important at work, like introduction to project leadership and team communication and pieces like that, are often available through some of our trade association partners. And those are classes apprentices are really interested in digging into as well, because it increases their skills overall and helps them become more valuable to their employers. In some cases, sorry, Derek, I'll add one more thing for employers.
No, go ahead.
In some cases, we can also support with the actual cost of the registered apprenticeship training, depending on how the program is set up to receive those dollars. And that would include things like books as well.
Yeah, and that actually was going to be my next question, was about the cost, because I think we're all mindful of a budget and cost, and so thank you for adding that on. Now let me ask you this question. As an employee, as somebody who's interested in getting into a career in construction, what advice would you give them in pursuing registered apprenticeships? And so what kind of sage wisdom can you offer them?
So for someone who is already working in the industry, one of the first things you can do if you're interested in this earn and learn pathway is to find out if your employer does participate, in fact, in registered apprenticeship. There are many contractors who do offer this after a probationary hire period. They want to get to know this employee a little bit, and if they do offer it and it's something that you're interested in, be clear about that interest. Let them know. We don't want to expect that it's going to happen immediately overnight. As I said, for those registered apprenticeship systems where that is the structure, that initial hire. As I said, there is a probationary period, but be sure to communicate your interest. And if you haven't entered the industry yet and are thinking about this is a potential pathway for me, I'd like to learn more. In those cases, some registered apprenticeship programs are structured that you go to the apprenticeship center, the JATC, or the non-union program first, and you apply there. You might be asked to take a basic assessment. And in just a minute, I'll tell you about some resources that we have to help with that. You might be asked to give some basic documentation, and typically those include things like driver's license or high school diploma or high school transcripts, or GED or high school equivalency for some crafts, not all. Again, we can talk about resources. But depending on how that registered apprenticeship program is set up, you may be then given a list of employers to connect with, or you may be directly admitted into the program and put on what's called a list, which means essentially you're waiting for opportunities. That apprenticeship program is now your partner in helping you get out and work for one of the employers that works with their program, and you're waiting for them to give you a call. Now, it sounds like a lot of steps, right? But the important thing for you to remember, if you're not yet attached with one of those programs, is there are organizations within the WORKNOW Coalition and elsewhere that can help you with that. If, for example, you never got a driver's license or you've temporarily lost it, there's programs that can help in the WORKNOW Coalition to pay off those fines and help you get it back. If you don't know where to find those transcripts, or you're a little bit nervous about the assessment, there's partners that offer tutoring. There's partners that will help you track that down. So those guidelines are in place because those programs have years of experience in understanding what contractors are looking for from day one, but they are committed to helping you meet those guidelines and not have those guidelines be a barrier. So in many cases, this involves working with WORKNOW and partner organizations to help you do that.
Great, thank you. Now, I just have one more question to follow up on. We've talked a lot about registered apprenticeships, and one path to registered apprenticeships is through pre-apprenticeships. And I know you guys have tremendous connection and success with pre-apprenticeships programs as well. So can you take a minute to kind of talk about that and how that leads into the next element of career development for folks?
Absolutely. So in our coalition, there are multiple community-based or school-based pre-apprenticeship programs. And essentially, what those programs are going to offer you as a job seeker are two or three things. The first is most of them, or the good ones, will offer some basic credentials that employers are looking for from day one. And those include things like OSHA 10 or potentially first aid CPR. So that really helps give you sort of the safety foundationals. A great pre-apprenticeship program is also going to give you some opportunity to explore elements of the industry like tool usage, potentially some very simple and very introductory building or framing concepts. They're really going to emphasize safety, comfort, and familiarity, wearing PPE all day. If you've never been in construction, what does it feel like to wear a hard hat for 8 hours straight? and also confidence in your ability to be there and pursue this work. And that is an important part of succeeding in construction. Many of the programs also will offer you additional tips on application to a registered apprenticeship program. In some cases, and you can always ask about this when you apply, there's direct entry to the list of the registered apprenticeship, but that is not a universal piece. It's something you want to ask about. Some of them will also offer built-in education pieces as well, reviewing construction math, reviewing how to hold a tape measure, things that you're going to be asked to do in those assessments. So while a pre-apprenticeship isn't required, many people can go and apply directly to registered apprenticeship and start. What you will find that's helpful about that is, again, the confidence building in your basic skills, and also the awareness and understanding of what it feels like to be outside, to be working outside with your hands, to be learning some basic strength and stretch work exercises that'll keep you safe, as well as understanding work gear and those safety components. So they can be really great at helping you build your industry awareness and readiness, as well as your confidence.
Great.
Wonderful.
That's fantastic information. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the populations that WORKNOW primarily serves, and what's the eligibility to use WORKNOW. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So this coalition, any of the training or supportive services that we as a coalition provide are geared towards construction employment. So generally, for the most part, we're looking at 18 and up. I will say that several of our coalition partners do specialize in working either through high school or alternate education partnerships, or through pre-apprenticeship programs that they have embedded into different schools. So if someone is watching and is younger than that and is interested, we do know of multiple coalition partners that work ages 16 and up. And it's, to your benefit as a job seeker, I think, to be connecting with individual programs as well as broader resource programs. If your ultimate goal is to find work in construction, then you've got relationships and partnerships and services that will help you succeed in this industry through multiple levels. We typically wouldn't go younger than 16, but again, we certainly could refer someone at that point to, middle school or high school district programs that are really designed to primarily support industry exposure.
Gotcha. That's great information. Are you observing any trends right now in the need for WORKNOW?
Yes, and that is really twofold. One, increase demand from contractors. We are rolling out now here in early summer 2021 of an expended period of many parts of the economy being shut down, right? But construction is an essential industry that for the most part continued. So we saw very little drop in employment in this industry. We did see some individuals that had reduced hours. So that led to one of the trends in growth, and that's people who are already working needing a little bit more support. Incumbent workers increasing the requests for supportive services because their hours and therefore their income have been slightly reduced. But as the economy expands in general in Colorado, contractors are facing now, projects that were on hold suddenly starting up again. And so there is an increased demand in contractors looking for workers, particularly on the skilled craft side. And one of the things that we want to stress is, some people think about, I'm not sure if I want to go into construction because I'm not sure that I want to work a physical job my whole life. And I think a really important thing for people to be aware of if they're not familiar with the industry is that, there are endless pathways to six-figure jobs in safety and project management, in business ownership, in starting your own specialty, general contractor support. And many of those, the best candidates are the ones that also have some craft under understanding and awareness. So the best project managers and foremen and business developers, estimators are the ones that also understand how the project is built and what it takes. What's the actual cost of underestimating or overestimating your materials, because you've been there on a job site when somebody didn't do it right.
Right.
So, these pathways can be really critical. So even though we may not be seeing the same number of employment requests and increases in professional services or office jobs, the increase in craft gives you more opportunity to step into this industry, gain some skills, gain some exposure, pay attention to the pathways that really interest and excite you, and set a chart that allows you to pursue those with some basic skills.
Gotcha. You alluded to this a little bit earlier. Well, so what I want you to expand on this a little bit. What are the potential barriers right now that construction workers are facing?
So for individuals in the industry, certainly challenges around transportation in some cases. A contractor, when you're in this industry, and this is a little bit different than other industries, your job site is going to constantly change. You're working yourself out of a job, and you're either going to stay with that employer and move to a new project site, which may be further away from your house, may involve increased need for, support with gas or a public transportation solution that you can figure out quickly and easily, or you are not going with that contractor and you need to find another position quickly. So again, the benefit of having a coalition and a network of groups to help with that and get you rehired with a new company quickly is beneficial. Some other barriers just include, as the general cost of living increases here in Metro Denver, or depending on the impact of the pandemic for your family may have lost income, and construction is a high wage industry. The jobs pay very well. But if your family overall is struggling in a certain area, then there may be needs around, where can I find more affordable housing? Where can I find support to buy some new tools? And when you're in the moment and you're facing that barrier, you want an answer right away. And you may or may not want to talk to your employer about it. And that's where a coalition like WORKNOW can really help. And for those that aren't already working in construction, a couple of the biggest barriers are really around, how do you get suited up and geared up and ready to go day one? Maybe you went through this pathway, but then they told you had a job and you need to show up on Monday. You can't show up in a t-shirt and sneakers. There's gear to keep you safe. And depending on your family circumstances, it might be helpful for you to have resources to help get that gear, the right gear that you need for the first day on the job. And that's the biggest obstacle I think we see for people that are trying to get into the industry.
Wonderful. Excellent. Excellent. I did want to follow up on one of the things you talked about, because one of the things that we understand is when people need support, they don't need it 2 weeks from now or a month from now. They need it now. And so how long is the process for someone to get enrolled into WORKNOW? What does that look like?
Well, it really depends on what you're looking for and how much you communicate. So there's a couple of different access points on how you can get into WORKNOW. You can go to our website, www.work-now.org, and fill out an interest form. You can connect through one of our partner organizations all across Metro Denver on the spot. And you also can text us or give us a call, particularly if you're working on a project. There should be signage and information on that project on how to text in. And for all of those, if someone indicates right away, particularly in that interest form, there's a little comment box, let us know if this is something where you're starting a job on Monday. We've had instances where people filled out a form on Saturday, starting a job on Monday that they'd gotten through their church, and they needed boots or they were going to have to turn down the job. So, we are an action-oriented group. So what that meant was, okay, come meet us tomorrow and you're going to have to fill out the application on the spot, but we'll give you boots.
Yeah.
More typically, there's an initial conversation with a navigator and then an application and a plan of advancement that can be done over the phone or virtually or in one of the access points all across Metro Denver. And that, typically it takes less than a week, from the time you make the first contact to do all that. But it really varies on how much you communicate up front about whether or not you have a pressing need or how much you're just interested in enrolling and moving forward in your career.
Yeah, great. Great. Thank you. I know, for full disclosure to our audience, I did work for WorkNow, and Katrina and I worked together for a while, and I know firsthand how important it is to provide that support to people in a timely fashion, and I've seen it happen. I've sent people to you guys. I may be one of them guys that sent you somebody on Saturday for a job Monday, you know. But I just know the level of dedication and commitment that you have from the core partners as well as your staff. I mean, I think we talk a lot about the core partners, but you have a phenomenal staff of people that contribute to the success of WorkNow. Can you tell us a little more about the people that work in the WorkNow, not just the core partners, but your staff?
Sure. So this is a coalition, and every coalition to keep it moving forward needs a support team, right? And we see our office here at Community College of Denver as a support team that can help accelerate services directly to community members and contractors, but also deepen the level of support for the individual partner organizations that are working with us. So we have, in that regard, someone who supports the data entry and the cross-checking. So, partners know how many people they have enrolled, who they need to contact and when, and verify employment and training completion data quickly. We also have staff that help facilitate the different action task teams across the coalition. So that includes an assistant director who supports the business navigation team, as well as the navigators. And the navigators are really the individuals who work one-on-one with members at access points all across Metro Denver, embedded within different organizations to really help that. Yes, we are individual organizations, but we are also a collective, helping to ensure that there's access to common resources and common information about jobs. The business services facilitation, those individuals are working, as the name would suggest, with contractors and with employers in the industry, whether it's helping to provide workers for the project, whether it's helping them understand which foundational skills training partners might be a good pipeline for them, or which upgrades we might want to customize or develop based on the workforce needs that they're hearing on their project from their employers, as well as really engaging in, I mentioned at the very beginning, this is about what are some of those barriers and how can we fix them rather than how can we see them continue to impact people or continue to turn people away from the industry. So that team really engages in a lot of the deep work with employers too around what could we do, for example, to ensure that there aren't biases built into a hiring process, or what could we do to ensure that the women on your team have access to outside networking and mentoring supports? How can you as an employer build up your own awareness of how to support women on the job site? Examples like that. And then in addition, we have probably the partners are most interested in the office management side, which takes invoices and helps manage payment and do all those kinds of things. We also work to support the Community Advisory Council, which is, members making recommendations and suggestions for programs and for services, and really developing their own leadership experience and learning how to use their own voice in this work. And then supporting outreach and marketing and recruitment for the whole partnership. So really, kind of this behind the scenes tool belt, so to speak, to help all of the individual partner organizations stay moving in the same direction to support communities and contractors in these career paths.
Right. That's an overwhelming amount of services that you guys provide, both to employees and employers. So, okay, so what's the cost? What's the cost for employees and what's the cost for employers to use your services?
WORKNOW services are free to members. We do encourage several give back strategies throughout the year, whether that's becoming a mentor to somebody brand new in the industry, or potentially even considering a contribution. Twice a year we do a campaign for a grassroots community-based effort fundraising, and we give members an opportunity to support that if they want, and then WORKNOW itself makes a matching contribution there. But the services, we don't have a fee for service. Members are able to do this. WORKNOW supports the industry in general. We have some special projects that we offer a deeper amount of services for, and in those cases, we're usually talking to project owners directly, as well as prime or general contractor employers on that project, on what an appropriate level investment looks like to help bring these programs in a deeper, more targeted way to that project for the benefit of any individual employer on that project. And the funding for the partnership overall is really, this three-legged stool of those kinds of project investments combined with aligned dollars from the projects. I mentioned at the beginning, part of this work is really about breaking down silos. So many of these individual partners have funding stream and have support to do specific activities, but want to dedicate in a way that gets more effective employment outcomes or more effective change strategies. And so there's aligned dollars there. And then that third bucket is really collectively pursuing philanthropy or workforce funding that shares the same kind of vision that we have as a partnership. And that's what allows those services to be, for the most part, free.
Yeah. Yeah. Can you talk about the partnership you have with the city and county? Because I think that's a unique kind of perspective that I think it's important to share.
Absolutely. So, I mentioned there's a bucket of project owners, public and private, is a part of that funding stool. And, the city and county of Denver in particular was looking at a large portfolio of projects, the Elevate Denver bond projects, among others, and really asking itself, what can we do to ensure that these public projects, in many cases receiving some public funding, have a dedicated public benefit in addition to the space being built or expanded or improved upon in itself, which is certainly a benefit for the residents of the city and county of Denver. In addition to that, what does it look like to ensure that there's community benefit in terms of employment or workforce opportunities on the projects? And so that partnership or that relationship is a commitment to set on the project side workforce goals into those projects, which include registered apprenticeship utilization and other pieces that are customized with those teams within City and County of Denver. But then we have a contract relationship with the City and County of Denver to provide services and support on those projects as identified. And that, I think, is a real powerful commitment from city and county government to ensure that there is community benefits on the projects that they're investing in. In addition, the City and County of Denver from the very beginning was a founding partner in this coalition work. And, it started before you became a funder. It started with the idea that we believe that, having a community arm that's supporting and making connections to city projects is strong. And we believe that that's important. And we also believe that it's important to create opportunities for communities to get engaged in the workforce and employment and business in general, whether it's our project or not. But we want the citizens and residents of Denver to be able to access these services. So, a lot of the early on program development and partnership development and figuring out how we were going to measure success. The city of Denver was a really active partner through the Division of Workforce Services and Economic Development and Opportunity in that work from the very beginning, which I think, again, speaks to the value that it is for the city.
Great. Thank you.
We could just touch briefly on it because is such a big thing, was and still is. How has COVID-19 affected the way that you conduct your business?
Well, the interesting thing about being a coalition made up of a lot of different individual organizations is from the start, from our planning, we had to really consider how we were going to work and communicate together when we weren't in the same space every day. So from the very beginning, we had developed software tracking standards or outcomes tracking standards. We had developed a project management portal that was accessible by anyone in the partnership with consistent information about recruitment, outreach, services, data tracking. All of those tools were already in place when COVID hit. So on one hand, because of those already built tools, and because this industry continued to move forward, there was very minimal impact. There were still contractors that needed employees. There were still employees that needed support. And we had a way to work together because we were used to not being in the same room with each other. So on that hand, there was very minimal effect. On the other hand, as everyone knows, there was a dramatic impact in terms of, recruitment and outreach. Much of what we do as a coalition is really based on peer-to-peer connections, friends and family referrals, people talking directly in trusted sources about how a particular program or how a particular job path helped them, and how it could potentially support someone else. And those are really important pieces of our authenticity and our ability to work together. And we suddenly lost the ability to really meet people face to face for a long time. So we had to really pivot and think about how we recruit in different ways. Again, aligning with community partners that were doing emergency services on the spot and getting information out through food box distributions, for example, or through organizations that were still working with customers, whether it was virtually or in person, really making sure that they had the top 3 talking points that they could share in case someone wanted to get in touch. So it forced us to be creative about recruitment and outreach. But other than that, it really reinforced to me the power of collective action and what happens when you have people organized around common goals and a common vision. And, they're really able to still execute on those when you have that kind of passion and partnership. And then it also helps when you do need to have an emergency response. You have those trusted relationships, who does what, whose expertise is this and whose expertise is that. And it shortens your response time, which I think is a huge benefit to community as well. We saw partners during COVID launch new emergency food distribution efforts. We saw partners launch new training programs, turn virtually on a dime because they knew what they did and what others in the coalition did, and it shortened their response time.
Great. Wonderful. John, do you have, and I think you have a couple more questions you wanted to follow up with?
Just real quick. Basically, I just wanted for you to explain basically how, you said about how you get the word out. There's flyers at job sites, and I know there's banners out there about WORKNOW. So if a company's interested in using WORKNOW, and if employees interested in using WORKNOW, What do they do, and how do you get the word out to them? How does like an employer get the word out to his employees and that kind of thing?
Yeah, so for a contractor who wants to promote to employees on a job site, we've got a couple different tools. We can put a banner on a fence around a job site that has our text number. We have pocket-sized expanded business cards that have contact information and overview the benefits and the resources accessible through WorkNow to working construction employees, and that's in English and Spanish, and we can give those to contractors to share to their workforce. Obviously, if a contractor wants to get in touch with us, there's an interest form for employers, just like there is for job seekers, and that can be also found on the website, www.work-now.org. Those are just a couple of the ways that they can access us.
Okay, and I'll make sure that website is listed on the video as well. So we're wrapping up right now. So is there anything else you'd like to add or share about anything that we haven't covered, or any of the services, or any upcoming events, or anything like that?
Well, I will say that I think that for both contractors or community members, there is significant value right now in really thinking about how not only to find workers, but also how to retain workers. So really thinking about those supportive services. You don't need to be an expert in how to reduce barriers for your workers, but it really helps if you are connected to experts in doing that. And the individual partner organizations of this coalition are experts and would love to support you in helping you not only find the workers that you need, but especially to retain them through some of these external resources. And we've talked about so many different resources and opportunities, but I just want to remind people that registered apprenticeship itself is one of those for both job seekers and community members, as well as contractors.
Great. Yes, we covered a lot of information and a lot of services, like I said earlier. So I want to say thank you so much for joining us today and letting our viewers know about WorkNow and all the services, not only for apprenticeship programs, but other services that you and your coalition offer. So thank you again for being here.
My pleasure. It was really a joy to be with you and Derek, John, to talk about this. And for those of you watching, thanks for sharing some time with us as well.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.